Hey friends, I have some big news. Starbucks now is the #1 position in my dividend stock portfolio again. It surged in share price today by 20%. It's on some very large news that Brian Niccol, the CEO of Chipotle, he's coming over and he's going to be CEO and chairman at Starbucks very soon here in early September. He's going to replace NARASIMHAN. LAXMAN actually stepped down effective immediately today, August 13th, as CEO of Starbucks. Rachel Ruggeri, who is currently the CFO, she's going to be the interim CEO until Brian Niccol starts. The company is moving onward, and it seems like Wall Street, they really like this news because Starbucks stock is up a staggering 20% in a single day. I want to take a step back as a dividend stock investor, as a long-term investor, as a multi-decade long investor. I want to really take a step back and share with all of you out there how I'm interpreting this news today. But first, let's just look at the news. What's happening? As you can see on the screen in front of you right now, I summarize for you right here what is happening. So Brian Niccol, he's now the chairman and CEO of Starbucks as of September 9th. LAXMAN stepped down immediately. What is so exciting about Brian Niccol? Why is the stock up so much? Well, he became Chipotle CEO in 2018, and under his leadership, CMG stock is up nearly 800%. I think many investors today are excited for the future of Starbucks. Could Starbucks be up several 100% over the next few years? Only time will tell, but it's up 20% today just on this news. I like what this press release shares from today, from August 13th. In particular, it says, I have a snippet here, Niccol serves currently as chairman and CEO of Chipotle. Since becoming the CEO in 2018, he's transformed the company. His focus, and this is a sentence that I think is really important here, it shows where his focus has been, and I think these are all things that are important to Starbucks. It's been on the people and culture, the brand, the menu innovation, excellence in operations, digital transformation. He's set new standards in the industry. He's driven significant growth and value creation. Revenue has nearly doubled. Profits have increased nearly sevenfold. Stock price has increased by nearly 800%, all while increasing wages for retail team members, expanding benefits, strengthening the culture. A lot of what this paragraph, this snippet, touches on are all core to Starbucks, because Starbucks isn't just about one thing. It's not just about, oh, let's get our costs down on the coffee, and only if we could do that would the company transform. No, this is a brand that deserves value creation in so many aspects of their business. This is a business that relies heavily on partners. I just read this book, Pour Your Heart Into It. So another one by Howard Schultz. And in Pour Your Heart Into It, this book really talks about the history of Starbucks and how Starbucks, the aspirations of the company are to be the most recognized brand in the world, to have the best relationship with their partners. That's what they call their employees at Starbucks, to have the best experience for customers, to have so many different things, digital value creation, best quality coffee in the world. And it seems like Brian Niccol has touched on many of those aspects of what should be happening at Starbucks over at Chipotle. And so now he brings that value to Starbucks. The stock is up a lot. But how am I looking at this when I take a step back? When I take a step back, I'm looking at this in a few ways. And so I want to share that with all of you. Check it out on the screen in front of you right now. So this one is fun. Starbucks is now my #1 position again. Boy, this is a little frustrating, honestly, because over on Corner Patreon, just last night, I uploaded my stock portfolio. And the #1 position was Johnson & Johnson. And I just run all my numbers. And now, in the day after I publish my portfolio on Corner Patreon, by the way, I'll link to that in the pinned comment below. Check me out, Corner Patreon. Great community over there. We just had a book club recently where we discussed this book, a fun Zoom meetup book club. Anyway, I published the portfolio. Of course, the next day there's a major change. I have a new #1 stock. That's just how it always seems to go. But as you can see on the screen, yep, it's #1 again. And Yesterday, it was 7.7% of my portfolio by value. Today, it's 9.1% of my portfolio by value. Here's a key takeaway. I'm going to link to this in the pinned comment below, but I just did a video on my watch list. I had a bunch of stocks on my watch list that I have been actively buying or that I've been marking as kind of, hey, I want to buy these. Takeaway is when you see value, when you see a stock you want to buy at a certain price range, don't assume it will be in that range forever. Opportunities can quickly disappear. Starbucks, it's not on my watch list anymore. When Starbucks was trading in the 70s, it was on my watch list. I was adding shares. I saw some value there. I've shared this over on Patreon. On all of my patrons, backyard tier and corner tier, see all my trades. And I'll link again to my Patreon in the pinned comment. But over on Patreon, the patrons have seen, hey, I've made some trades in Starbucks, bought some more shares recently in the 70s. Now that it has jumped up into the 90s, I'm not buying anymore. I'm not buying. I'm reinvesting here. I'm holding for the long term, but I don't quite see that short-term value. Yeah, hey, this news about Brian Niccol, this is great, but I want to see how it plays out. Just the promise of this amazing leadership is awesome, but it's not good enough for me here to be buying more shares in the 90s. And so the key lesson, the key takeaway, I've seen this time and time again. I explained this recently with my experience buying a British American BTI stock, which is now one of my largest positions in the portfolio. It was running up. It was getting away from me. And so I had to act quick. When we see value in the stock market these days, value can disappear without any notice. It can just be gone. And so that's just a takeaway for long-term investors, for dividend investors, for those trying to buy value, that value, it may not last forever. And I don't see the value right now with Starbucks in the 90s, but I still see a really exciting story looking out years and decades into the future. But let's keep going. Next thing that you can see on the screen right now, I want to share my next takeaway from all of this is, hey, don't project your assumptions onto a stock. And this goes both ways. I talk about Starbucks a lot here on this channel. Over the years, recently, whenever, I like talking about it. And every time I talk about it, I'd say more increasingly recently, I've seen people saying, hey, I would never pay $7 for a coffee. And they're kind of projecting that onto others just because they wouldn't pay it. They're assuming, oh, society won't pay that. Others won't pay that. They're also saying, I just don't want the company to succeed. They don't like it, whatever reason. But just because someone doesn't want a company to succeed doesn't mean it will not succeed. With Brian Niccol here running this company, I think it has a greater chance of growth than ever before. But it goes both ways. I'm a huge Starbucks fan. You all know that. Just because I like Starbucks, just because I like the product, I like the experience, I like going into the cafe, I like talking to the baristas, the partners there, I like sitting down and taking in the atmosphere there, I like meeting up with friends there and having conversations about dividend stocks over coffee. Just because I like it and it's good for me doesn't mean it's a great company and that it will do very well into the future. And so I think it's very important, for whatever reason, this one, it triggers a lot of people. They either love it or hate it. And I think there's a lot out in the community that don't want it to succeed. They don't like it. They don't want to see it do well. But just because they don't want to see it do well doesn't mean that that will be the reality. And so I think this is a lesson for all of us investors, whether they're negative emotions or positive emotions, remove them from the mix when analyzing stocks. Because as you can see on the screen in front of you right now, the media would lead you to believe that this stock is going out of business. This company is going out of business. But let's just look at the facts. Let's look at it without bias. Q3, which they just announced, revenues were up 1% year over year on a constant currency basis. Non-GAAP EPS was down 6% year over year. 526 net new stores opened in Q3. In Q2, which was that terrible, terrible quarter where the stock tanked, net revenues were down 1% year over year on a constant currency basis. Non-GAAP EPS were down 7% year over year on a constant currency basis. 364 net new stores opened in Q2. Hey, neither of these quarters were great, but seeing revenues basically flat and EPS down, say, 6 or 7%, does that seem to you Put in the comments below, like a company that is going out of business, like a company where, oh, no one's ever going to pay for their product ever again. I think the media, investors, because for whatever reason, this company is so polarizing. There's so many that either love it or hate it for whatever reason. I'm someone who loves it. I know a lot of people out there seem to hate it. It kind of boils up in the comments. A lot of people wish that they would not do well, but just because they wish that doesn't make that reality. When I just put all that aside and I just look at the facts, hey, it's a company that has certainly slowed down in growth. It's facing a setback. I think it's tracking the economy in many ways because we're seeing a slowdown in the economy right now. I wouldn't be surprised if the Fed cuts interest rates in a future meeting not too long from now. We'll see. But in Pour Your Heart Into It, which was the book Howard Schultz wrote about the earlier days of Starbucks, there were so many examples where the company faced setbacks. There were so many examples. It didn't just go up and to the right. It went up, it went back down, it went up, it went back down. But when you look at it over the long term, over the decades, the trend was up and to the right. And so I just think it's really important, as you see on the screen right now, not to project assumptions onto a stock, but also just to look realistically like, hey, yeah, this is great that Brian Niccol is in charge now. And yes, I think he has a great chance of moving the company forward. But taking a step back, did it really warrant 20% up in a single day? Were they really even doing that bad? Do these numbers look that bad? It looks to me more like a minor to moderate setback, but certainly I'm not someone right now who was in a position that thought Starbucks needs some massive turnaround, whereas so many people are talking about, wow, it's a turnaround play. No, when I think about a business turnaround, I think about a crisis. And I don't think that Starbucks right now, they're not really in a crisis, but certainly I'm excited for the future. I think it's great. And I think that they're going to grow. So that leads me into my next point, which is related to the last point. Just check it out on the screen right now. Business is not linear. So many people, because of the media, because of just negative sentiment, because of people talking bad about this company, I think they probably sold it. They moved on from it. Oh, Starbucks, no one's ever going to pay for that again. Well, more or less everyone's still buying it, but no, they're never going to buy it again. It's so important to remember, business is not linear. Howard Schultz talks about this in Pour Your Heart Into It. Business has ups and downs. It has successes and then setbacks. It is not linear. There are many times throughout Starbucks history where it has faced setbacks. I think it's so important to disengage from the broader conversation, disengage from the media, and just remember, when you or I invest in something with a long-term perspective, with a multi-decade perspective, it's important to remember that, hey, sometimes it's just important to tune out the noise. Hey, sometimes when, yeah, Starbucks did face maybe a minor to moderate setback with some EPS decline, certainly with some unionization challenges. Certainly it is not the growth story it had been in prior years. And yeah, I guess from that standpoint, to be in hyper growth territory, it needed a turnaround. I already knew, hey, I just tuned this stuff out because I know business is not linear. I know I'm in it for decades. I have the right perspective. And I think this is a reminder to all of us that, yeah, it's important to have perspective because, boy, wouldn't I feel bad today if I were a less experienced investor and I just sold it because the media told me it was no good anymore. No, I detach myself from that and I remember that businesses over the years have their ups and downs. Just look at a stock like Microsoft. It had a long period of time where it went nowhere. It didn't do very well. And it's only in more recent years that growth has revived. I think that's what everyone is hopeful for with Brian Niccol, that he's going to revive that growth and that it's going to catapult this stock into that hyper-growth territory again. But I have some more thoughts on the news. Check it out on the screen in front of you right now. So the next thought is just having a long-term perspective. This news is really exciting. I think Brian Niccol could do great things at Starbucks. That being said, 20% in a single day, I think it's a bit much. Given where we are now. He hasn't started yet. He hasn't done anything yet. I try, honestly, on the downside and on the upside, not to get too excited about this kind of news. I'm a long-term investor. Hey, it's nice, but in some ways I'm sad about this news because it's not on my watch list anymore. It's too expensive now. I try not to get too down about bad news like the Q2 results when the stock tanked. I try not to get too excited on days like today. There's so much fanfare out there about this, and yeah, it's great, but hey, I'm a long-term investor. I've just conditioned myself to hold a diversified portfolio, so single-day fluctuations, they don't really matter to me too much any given way. I try to zoom out, and I really only celebrate wins when they happen over many years, because yeah, right now what we're facing, it's kind of like, hey, a short-term win, I guess. We got a really cool CEO here that's starting at Starbucks. But look, time will tell. Time will tell. And with all of that, what I do want to do now is I want to close out with some statistics. I just want to show you yesterday versus today. How is the stock looking? Check it out on the screen in front of you right now. So when we look at the statistics yesterday, when this still was on my watch list, it was trading at 77.03. It was 7.7% of my portfolio value is my number 2 position. Fast forward to today, it's trading at 92.77. It's my number 1 position. It's 9.1% of my portfolio value. The key things that I highlight here is yesterday, it had a forward PE this year of 21, next year of 19. Now, because it's gone up so much, the forward PE on this year's EPS, projected EPS, is almost 26, and next year's projected EPS is 23. The starting yield goes from nearly 3% to 2.46%. The dividend growth rate, at least that's strong, doesn't change. It's 9.6% per year on average over the last 5 years. But here's where I'm at. It's expensive now. A lot of the future growth, it's priced in now. I think the market is anticipating Brian Niccol, he's going to do great things. But it's expensive now. I want to see what he does. I'm holding my position. It's number 1. I'm reinvesting my dividends back into Starbucks. I'm not selectively reinvesting elsewhere. It's going back into Starbucks. But I'm not buying more shares here. I'm glad. I'm thankful that I bought shares when everyone was telling me not to. I'm thankful when the haters were out there saying no one will ever buy this coffee again, even though revenue is flat and EPS is down like 6 or 7%, which is just mind-boggling to me that they're saying that's no one ever buying their coffee again. Whatever. I'm glad I don't listen to that. I just follow my heart. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from all of this. I follow my heart. I follow my conviction. I follow my analysis. And yeah, I'm excited about the future, but I'm not buying more here. And so that's what I take away from all of this. But I think it'll be really exciting to see what the new CEO does. He did a lot at Chipotle. And most importantly, I look at a CEO as a motivator, as a leader. And it's not even about what Brian Niccol can do. It's about what he can get his team to do. And so it'll be interesting to see, can he inspire the team in new ways, in different ways than maybe LAXMAN was able to do over, say, the last year. It'll be interesting. But I know, in Pour Your Heart Into It, the way that Howard Schultz wrote about this company in the early days is just the passion, the excellence. It makes anyone who reads that book, who is a kind of type A personality, an A player, a star player, want to work in that type of environment. It makes the reader wish, wow, I want to work somewhere that is of that caliber, or where I work, I want to make it of that caliber, because the caliber in which they were just executing this vision was so strong and so amazing. Hopefully that is the environment that can be created going forward. And I think with that environment, my long-term goal, my long-term hope for Starbucks is I believe that they could be a $200 billion market cap company. That would double the value of the company from here. That's kind of where I see things going personally, if they can execute properly on their international expansion. And that honestly might be an area where they are missing out with LAXMAN, because I think he had a lot of value to add in that arena. But I'm sure that Brian Niccol will as well. And so it'll be interesting, but put in the comments below, what do you think about the big news today? And if you did enjoy the video, please click that like button. It means the world to me. I had another video planned for today. It was a portfolio update type of video, but I'm delaying that till later this week because I had to get this one in because the news is out there. It's a big deal. It's a big day. But share your thoughts in the comments below. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out, especially on that next video on my big portfolio update. And so, thank you for watching. I love you all. See you in the comments below. Before I leave today, in terms of a full disclosure, I am long Starbucks, SBUX. I am long Johnson & Johnson, ticker J&J, and British American, ticker BTI. I own those stocks in my personal dividend stock portfolio. Before I go today, in terms of a friendly disclaimer, today's video, it's not investment advice. I'm not a licensed investment advisor. I'm just sharing my journey here on YouTube for fun and entertainment. It's possible to lose money in the stock market. I just share my personal journey here. Make sure to go out and consult with your licensed investment advisor before making any personal decisions for yourself. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next dividend stock investing video.